And welcome back to Charging Stack. Today we're joined by Wim Ouboter, the creator of Microlino, a modern take on the classic BMW Isetta. This Swiss-made micro-electric car is built for city life, light efficient and affordable, with a range of up to 180 kilometers and a top speed of 90 kilometers. The Microlino is changing how we move around in the cities.
So
Wim,
thank you very
welcome
much
to
for the
Charging Stack.
invitation. I love to share my experience I had in the last 3 years driving a Microlino in different cities in Europe.
Absolutely. We cannot wait to hear all your stories and the insights. I would like to start with the kind of origin and mission. What sparked the idea for Microlino? How did the
Well,
journey
first of all, I have
start?
to say, my business career starts with micromobility. I'm actually the inventor of the word of micromobility, but I started with a scooter, with a collapsible scooter. In the US, you know it on the Razor scooter. We sell it on the micro scooter, coming from the same factory. And this is how I made my first money, of course. We first produced in China. With 500 people when we started. And after a little bit more than a year, we go up to 15,000 people producing 80,000 scooters per day in China, 7 days a week in 3 factories. So that's a little bit the background in a nutshell. So that's why I made my money to go into a more crazy project, which is the Microlino. I have started this 10 years ago. Had some, issues with one partner who sold his company. So I had a new partner that was not on the same philosophy line than me. So we lost a couple of years. But now we are in production since 3 years. We produced 5,000 Microlino in our own factory in Turin.
Awesome, amazing. We're gonna hear much more about the whole story later. Yeah, Philip, we covered so much of the micromobility, and we are sitting here with the godfather of a word, micromobility, which is a great honor. And yeah, awesome, really interesting. You often say, Microlina asks, how much car do you really need when it comes to the size of a car? How does that question shape your design decisions?
Yes,
Let's say.
this is true. I mean, we go through the statistic, and the statistic is saying that 1.2 people are in a car. The average distance all over Europe, let's say like 32 kilometers. The average speed is about 36 kilometers. So how much car do you need for this? And so we said, why don't we make a car that is really okay for that purpose? So maximum 2 people that can speed up to 30 kilometers in a very short moment because it's really light. So on a red light, you're beating many muscle cars because of the weight. And so that's the idea. But then you also find out if you drive in a small car, and maybe you look like a loser. So it cannot be like a big car that is downsized into a small car. So it has to have a different look. So we have been searching the history, what cars are interesting, and so we came to the bubble cars. The bubble car was in 1955, and you have, for example, Messerschmitt. People sit behind each other, and you had, of course, BMW
Hmm.
Isetta, which was taking the license from an Italian company, Rivolto, which were actually the inventor of this front door. And this car had like a drop shape, which makes it unique because you don't have a car with a drop shape. Some of them even had only one wheel in the back. We didn't want to have one wheel in the back, but we said maybe we have to do the narrow wheels a bit more narrow, so to give a different look than a regular car. And to exit not with the side door, you exit through the front door, so you have the possibility to do cross parking. So we said this is the perfect product in our days for the city to find a parking space. In 1955, the success of this BMW Isetta was people didn't have the money to buy a real car after the Second World War, but they wanted to have a weather-protected, let's say, vehicle to go from A to B. And the funny thing is that actually the BMW Isetta saved BMW from going bankrupt. So this is just about the history and why we bring it up now. Now we bring it up because of
Interesting.
space. We bring it up in order to set something against these SUV that are getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year, and about the parking space, which has become a big issue in the city. So we take this old concept out of the box, of course, make it electric because you want to have a much lower CO2 footprint. And everybody knows a CO2 footprint is mainly also how heavy a car is and how big the battery is. Also there, we say we go with 3 battery versions, small one, 6 kilowatt, 11 kilowatt and 15 kilowatt. So we have about 60% smaller CO2 footprint than an average electric car. I don't even want to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
combustion and so on. So that's how we came up with this idea.
Yes.
And then I had another issue. This was my two sons, Oliver and Merlin. They're both around 30 years. They're 1.5 years apart. They live together. They have a very good relationship. For a father, the nicest thing is if you have a business, if you can bring your kids into the company as early as possible. And even more, to create a product together. So not just to take over, but to create it together. And this was the let's say the motivation behind the Microlino project.
Awesome, awesome. What a great story. What a great story to hear, especially with the family side. And I just want to talk about, I'm going to talk about design more, but just one interesting fact that I realized just now, looking at your product, the Microlino car, there's a huge trend right now in the car industry of reviving the designs. We've seen it with Lamborghini Countach. We're now seeing with the whole Renault, the new Twingo, the new Renault 5. And I kind of feel you were the first ones who started this, producing something modern with bringing back the old design, which is really interesting. And you definitely were let's say, the not early adopter, but you kind of started this trend, and now you're absolutely fitting in well in this whole trend of the industry. Why would you, let's say, focus on this motorcycle category, L6E, L7E, rather than entering, let's say, the mainstream
Money, money,
car market
money. It's
head
the
on?
money. You have to see if you really create the car. M1, you're talking about 1 billion if you start from scratch zero. And we started from scratch zero. I have money, but not that much money. So we wanted to do something that let's take the niche. And I give you another example why I think sometimes you have to look at the niche and where nobody is jumping in, and maybe you can start your business. I give you the example of my foldable scooter. Not the electric, the one for the for the kids, for the adults with the small inline skate wheels. I mean, this product could have been made by the bicycle industry because they had everything. They had the production, they had the distribution. You know, they didn't want to do it because for them it was underneath their bicycle. Oh, I make bicycle, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
making a scooter. This is a toy. This is for kids. So they left this market completely blank. And because it was like I call it also blue ocean marketing. So I was going in there and I had no competition at the beginning, absolutely no competition. And I was making more money than many, many bicycle companies and also much more profit than many bicycle companies. Now, afterwards, of course, a lot of companies were coming in. But this is the same concept we want to do now with the Microlino. We want to go into a segment where this segment has not really been touched, except for L6. L6 is only until 45 kilometers. You have the Citroën Ami, and you have maybe other smaller cars. But L6 is not really our vision because it's not a replacement of a car. We also make L6 because in some countries you can already drive when you're 16 years old. But our car is developed as an L7 in this niche. But we are the first company that can bring an L6 with 45 kilometers. So your kids can drive when they're 14 or 16 years old, depends on the country. And then when they're 18, we can upgrade to an L7. So it becomes a real, let's say, car replacement. And the life cycle is much longer because otherwise your kids, for sure, I guarantee you, when they're 18, they don't want to drive an L6 with 45 kilometers anymore. So also there, we're a little bit
Absolutely.
ahead of time, and we're really the first one able to do this transformation because you're moving into a different category. You cannot compare it with a motorbike. With a motorbike, if you let's say downgrade the power, it's still a motorbike. You understand? You don't have to move into a different category. But we are really moving from one category to the other, and this we have done in Germany very successfully, and that's a clear USP for our Microlino.
I'd like to ask you a bit more about the product itself, the car itself. So could you maybe walk us through the specs? So you have several battery options, different range options up to 184 kilometers. Top speed is 90 kilometers, which is perfect for L7 category, right? So could you give us maybe a quick look at the specs? How does the car
I think the
perform,
most
actually?
important thing you have to realize, and people unfortunately don't see it, is we have the same construction like a real car. We have a unibody construction made out of steel. So it becomes like a very stiff steel body. It's not like other ones. I'm not mentioning the names. They're making tubular frame and then they put some plastic panels on it. It's not the same story. It's not a bullet jacket, you know? So I think this is our main topic. Then for the specs, yeah, as you already said, 90 kilometers. We have 3 batteries. We would say the smallest battery we only do for the price point, but really it's like the mid-size battery, which you go 160 kilometers. And the big battery is about 240 kilometers. It is far enough for a small car. You have to see, you don't want to sit in a Microlino longer than 1.5 hours because it's not that comfortable, because it's reduced to the max. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is about the charging. That's also important. We don't have at the moment a fast charging. It's because of cost, etc. It's also, you don't travel with this car. You don't travel from north to south and you have to take a coffee and then do the fast charging and then continue your journey. No, it is for your daily trips. And either you charge in the office or you charge at home overnight. For example, my wife and I, we are driving the Microlino now for 3 years. And when we whoever comes home first, plugs in first. Before we go to bed, I go outside, unplug and plug the other one. And every morning, both cars are 100% charged. So it's not news. I think this is one of the really, really key factor. And the other thing is the front door. So people who don't know how it looks, they have to go to the internet and see some pictures, or maybe you have the possibility to show some pictures. Then you see the uniqueness is this front door. You can push on a hidden button, and then with a gas spring, the car opens automatically, and you can jump out. The advantage, in some cities, it's legal to park crossways. In other cities, they don't know what to do with it, but you don't get a ticket. That's fine. In Munich, we had a huge, let's say, shitstorm that the governor of Munich has decided from now on, cross parking is allowed with the Microlino. So that's about these specs. Yeah, the other thing is you cannot really explain. You have to experience yourself. And now I'm saying something which is maybe a bit on the edgy side, but people will remember. If you have to explain how an orgasm feels, it's very difficult to find the right words. And this is exactly with the Microlino. You have to experience yourself. I cannot explain it, but it's great. Go-kart feeling.
Yeah, you mentioned that front door. Just to say this to the audience, so it's around 251 in length. It's 147 in width. So that's really compact. So it seems really perfect for urban use. Now, instead of opening doors, maybe risking someone coming from
Exactly.
the left side or right side, it's super convenient. Another thing you mentioned earlier is that you are not going for the L7 category, L category.
No.
But there is a
This was
Microlino
not
Lite
our
version.
intention at the beginning, but
Yeah,
now we also
sorry, I
do it because
misphrased.
this is a much bigger market, the L6. There we are a little bit
Yeah.
overpriced because our car is over-engineered for L6 because it only goes 45 kilometers. But the advantage is you can change to an L7 because it's designed for an L7. You cannot do it with Renault and with the Citroën Ami or the Topolino, which comes from the same Stellantis family. You cannot switch from L6 to L7 because they are only designed as an L.
So someone who's a 16-year-old could buy a Microlino at 16, and 2 years pass,
Yeah.
and he's like, okay, now I'm
Yeah.
looking for more horsepower.
You have
Awesome.
to see, this is really, it
Awesome.
is really different in every European country. So welcome to Europe, you know, even there you have different rules. And only in Italy, it's you can start when you're 16, but you are not allowed to go to the highway with an L7 or with an L6. But with an L7 in Switzerland, in Germany, you can go to the highway. In France also.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, we love to be complicated. It would be interesting. Would be best if it was
Absolutely. I
unified
mean, for a
laws
manufacturer,
regarding.
makes things
Yes,
really
that would be
difficult. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah, it
Yeah.
slows us down, unfortunately. But we'll see. We'll see where we end up
that's
in the
something
future.
that we always comment with any micromobility founder or teen mobility founder that this is kind of the biggest obstacle we have in Europe, and
Yes.
that's the regulations are so much different country to country, and these countries aren't so big. Like Austria isn't so big in comparison
Yeah.
to maybe Wyoming. So, and you have 50 states, and well, regulations are the same for the most part. Yeah, it seems like this is a good chance to raise awareness about these regulations and how difficult it really is for a manufacturer to raise a business, not just focus on a single nation, but on Europe as a whole. So yeah, and you've done
Well,
it,
I'm not over the
and
peak.
you've
I'm
done
still
it, and now
losing
we're
quite some money, but our vision is not is a long-term vision. And let me give you at this point my favorite sentence from Bill Gates, which everybody should really take serious. He said, "People overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years." And this is if you start to have a mindset much longer time, it's incredible what you all of a sudden can brainstorm and things come at the moment. It sounds crazy, but you have now 10 years time, something's going to happen. So we will sell over 100,000 cars. I'm not saying they will all be made in Italy, but we will eventually sell 100,000 cars if you get the price right.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the point you raised before we started recording. Currently, 90% of the parts are European. You mentioned something about China. You mentioned something about, again, European laws and something that let's say triggered you in the recent
First, I have to
days.
say, when we started our own factory in Italy, it was really the time when COVID started. I mean, it was not the best time to start. First of all, you also had a supply chain problem, and people were talking at that time about local sourcing, not to take stuff from China because of this issue, so to use local suppliers. And we actually did. But the outcome was that the car was getting more expensive than originally planned. That is why we have to now in the last let's say 1 year we are changing and taking some parts from China. For example, the battery we have now from China, from a very big company, and I also have to say that the quality and the price is better. I mean, this is really. I mean, it takes a while until we probably match in Europe the price and the quality level of batteries they have in China. And but I cannot wait. You understand? I mean, the customer is not willing to pay, let's say, 1,500, 2,000 more just because I have a European battery. They don't care. It's the price is
Absolutely, yeah.
important.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why we were actually first started here, which I think was good to learn because I'm not coming from the car. It's not like my second car or my 20th car. I'm doing my first car, and a scooter and the car is it's a completely different ball game. So it's better to have it close instead of doing this in China. Then also the other thing is when we started before COVID, we didn't really realize in Europe what was going on the car market in China. We didn't know. I mean, this is like when we had this lockdown, the Chinese, they were creating a new market of cars. I don't know, somebody told me it's over 200 brands. And when I went to China after this COVID, I saw all these Chinese cars I've never seen and heard before. So of course, when we make
Yeah.
our decision, it was also before the Chinese had this car power. That's why now we are in contact with China, and actually I'm going next week to China, and we discuss a Microlino 3.0, which is a Microlino that is cheaper for production, will not have a front door anymore because there are some pros and cons with the front door. We have side doors. We make suicide doors. And we have the same wheelbase in the back like in the front. So we make it also a little bit different looking than the front door. The front door we want to keep in Italy as long as possible because this is the icon, handmade in Italy. It's like a baby Ferrari, something like this. And the other will be more for masses. And we do the construction for CKD. That means that we can ship in a box the car to the US, to India, to wherever, and assembly the car locally in order to avoid any crazy taxes that we had in the past.
Perfect. That sounds like a really good plan. We are really excited for the Microlino 3.0. Sounds like I'm a bit sad
You
about the
can still
front
have it. You
doors,
can still have
but
it,
I'm
but
sure you
you
will.
have to see it. I also learned some older people they really have a problem to get in. And there are other people that have a
Mm-hmm.
body size is also, for them, it's they will not buy it because of this. So we had to say, we continue with our front door, so we have this. And this will be more a collector's item. We do probably co-branding with some fashion brands and so on. But the side door is really price driven. Back, it's also good for sharing. And we have normal windows going up now. The Microlino, you have the slide windows. They sounds easy, but they are more complicated to do than to have a up and down window.
Awesome. Yeah, makes total sense. Recently, we had Håkan Lutz from Lovely, and we were talking about, let's say, lowering environmental footprints with microcars, with micro vehicles. You also claim the same thing, the similar things in regard to versus the conventional EVs. How is that achieved in the practice? Let's say we know, the current EVs. I'm using this because we are having this 3 tons tanks on the street,
No, it's
all
ridiculous.
these
But
huge
don't forget, this is
BMWs.
a big lobby. The car industry is a big business. What they want to do, they want to make money. They don't want to save the planet. They would have never started electric if, I'm talking about a European, if there wouldn't be a push from the government. And now you see what they're doing. They say we have to be open for technology. That means continue selling combustion cars for the next years. This is an excuse,
20,
but it sounds nicer to say to be technology open.
yeah, but if you're, in my opinion, if you're technology open, EVs are without a
Absolutely, of
doubt a
course.
better
But
technology for a
don't
car.
forget, if you have a factory making a good profit on combustion engine, you try everything to tweeze it
Yeah,
around that this is it. And of course, they have
yeah.
big and strong lobbyists, and of course they don't like us, because what our statement is: keep your existing combustion engine that you already have. Your long distance car, because it's already produced, as long as possible. If it has a catalyst, as long as possible. And now it's coming, but only use it for distance over 40 kilometers. Only then. Before, you're not allowed.
Mm,
Then you use a Microlino, and then you have immediate CO2 smaller footprint. Not after 100 or 150,000 kilometers that you're driving with your EV that is too heavy, etc., etc. You understand what I mean? I really believe we have the
absolutely.
solution to do this, but the people are not willing to jump into a smaller car if there is not some benefit financially. Everything goes on your wallet. I'm sorry, it's like this. If you compare Norway, why is Norway so successful with EV? I think about over 90% they have EV, because the cost of a
95
combustion is
plus, yeah.
so high that everybody that can calculate a little bit is not going to buy a combustion engine car. And here we have a big lobby.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we in the house have a BMW i3 fully electric, and we kind of forgot to service it.
Yes.
For the
Yeah.
for the past
Yeah.
5 years, we've done
But
nothing on it.
this is a good point
Pretty
what you're
much nothing
saying.
on it.
It's what I am. I'm saying we really going into a crisis in Europe in the next, let's say, 5 to 8 years. Layoffs, etc. There are people, they cannot afford to have two combustion cars long distance anymore, so they have to give up one because of cost of living. So if they would replace one of them with a Microlino, immediately their cost would be much less, because the cost of charging a Microlino is about, I don't know, it's about maybe €3. So it's really less. And about service, there's not much service you can actually do. Changing the oil
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
gearbox, and maybe once in a while changing the brake pads. But because the car is really light, our brakes are not that much under stress like with a very heavy car. I also see from a social standpoint that in the future in Europe we will have to move to smaller cars in some families, because they want to stay mobile. You're not giving up your car. You say, "Are you using my bicycle?" No. Like today it's cold. So I think our chances are coming. But I think it's good if now the government is also supporting smaller, cheaper electric cars. This is what you have to do. You don't have to, somebody who buys let's say one of the first Tesla, somebody who buys that car probably has enough money to pay the full price. So this was a bit done in the wrong way. Or you have the people that have this hybrid, they got supported, they got subsidy for a hybrid SUV. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the sentiment of the market is finally changing from, buying EVs as a look,
Yeah.
as a some kind
Yes.
of showing off,
Yeah.
as a fitting the crowd. Now it's okay. Now I'm actually buying it because
Yeah.
I'm saving money
Exactly. Exactly. This is
and
this
it's
is
more
going to
practical.
be and the other thing is, I live in Zurich, and we have these car poser. I mean, they're renting a Ferrari or some kind of car, and they're driving up and down in the city, all the time. And sometimes we make a joke, my wife and I, when we go to Zurich with our Microlino, and we have a pink one, and you have no idea the reaction of the people. They do to us, they do this, and to the guy in this big Mercedes G class, they do this. We strongly believe it becomes the new lifestyle. If you want to really show that you are a cool guy, you care about our planet, you're driving a Microlino. So this type of thing. I don't know if you remember our messenger bag, Frei from. These are two Swiss brothers. They are very successful. They
Hmm.
started just about 2 years before I started with my scoots, and they made out of truck cover. This material, this thick material to cover the trucks. They recycle them and they make messenger bags. Ugly looking,
Hmm.
smelly. Not that they're very very successful. They made a lifestyle bag out of this because if you carry this bag, you are something special. You care about our planet. And so this type of thing, I think Microlino has the potential to become something like this. Not the car of the poor people, but the car of the people that care.
Yeah, understood. Absolutely.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you about. So Microlino addresses the urban second car segment or the city car segment. So if I have a gas car, that would be my primary for long trips. And if I need to go commute to work, if I need to go grocery shopping, I hop in Microlino and drive my 10 kilometers. How do you see that opportunity evolving in Europe? So, of course, it's great for those 15-minute cities, for those dense cities like Paris, like maybe Milan, like maybe Munich. But how do you see it evolving beyond that?
Yeah, first of all, maybe I really can tell my experience. I had the last 3 years with the two Microlinos. My wife and I have one. And it was for our trips we've done, for 95% of our trips with a car, we used a Microlino. We actually have only one use case for a bigger car. And this is on the weekend when we go skiing, when you have a further trip. But this is 5%. When I go to Geneva, when I go to Paris, to Turin, to Milano, or then another big city in Switzerland, I take the train. I'm not driving on the highway for, let's say, 200 kilometers. This is boring. I cannot work. So we have done this. That's why I know exactly. Actually, you don't need to own that car for that 5%. I think you should rent it, or you find
Yeah.
a deal with your neighbor. For example, I have my neighbor, I'm still in a good relationship with my neighbor. I can ask him, oh, sorry, you need it to this afternoon, unexpected. Can I use your car? Of course you can have my car, So this is something I call this private sharing, that maybe that you have a long distance car that you can share in your building, in your neighborhood and so on. But the Microlino will be your only car that you can drive any minute you need it. You just jump in. The second thing is about urban. You also have to see, for example, in Europe, you have a lot of train network, so that you don't need to take your car all the way to the city. So what you can do is you drive your car to the station that is close to your home with a Microlino in any weather. You park it there. We are now with the Swiss railway station in negotiation that we can rent one parking space where we can put 3 Microlinos, and we are asking companies to give this as to finance this as a, let's say, donation to less say CO2, that they push their own people to not to use the car, but to use the public transportation, but still have solved the problem from home to the train, to the nearest train station. So that's why then it becomes all of a sudden a different vehicle. It's like it's a combination of public and private transport.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a legit solution. Also, as you mentioned, the donating of 3 Microlinos, it brings a lot of brand awareness. I'm sure you're
Well, I can tell you, by the
absolutely
way, this
not
is a
lacking
funny
in it.
thing. I mean, we have our first company client who that we had was, it's a funny story. It's the CEO of Rolex from the watches. He called me up and he said he wants to try a Microlino. I said, "Oh, you have one tomorrow, of course. If this guy calls, you make everything possible." So we give him one in Geneva. And about 10 days later, I got an order of 3 dark green Microlino. So I called him up. I said, "Well, it's fantastic. Thank you very much. We can make any special colors for you." So I said, "No, this guy. Gets close enough to our company color." And I asked him, "May I ask you why do you buy these 3 cars?" That we cannot just talk about having a CO2 reduction in the company as a vision. We also have to show it in our management team. So this is for our management team to use it when they go from the headquarters to the factory, because this is a short distance. And I don't want them to go with their SUV. I want them to use the small cars. So he was the first customer that had a small fleet, only 3, but at least 3 is already a fleet. And so this is, and now we are hoping, of course, more and more companies are putting a couple of Microlinos into their fleet, not only to talk about we are CO2 neutral in 2030. No, what are you doing? Because if this huge combustion
Yeah.
SUV is standing in front of the direct parking place, and he's saying this, well, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, it could be just for show, but having those Microlinos. I mean, big props to Rolex CEO. So he's the
Yeah.
the first
And
fleet buyer.
if I can tell another funny story, it's just to finish that up. When we first started to
Please.
sell, we only sold our Microlinos in Switzerland. And so my youngest son, Merlin, he got a call from somebody from Italy, and he wanted to buy a Microlino. And my son was stubborn because he said, "No, we are not selling in Italy because we first want to build up the market and do our learning for the service, everything." So he was getting very pushy, this Italian guy. And at the end, he was asking, "At least do you want to know for who this car would have been?" And he said, yeah, you can tell me. And he said, "It's for the CEO of Gucci." And my son said, "Sorry, which color did you?" I didn't get which color did you want? Of course, we immediately organized to give him a car because it was a present from the holding is caring to the CEO to his
Wow.
60th birthday.
Wow.
So it's also a funny story. It's like approved by the fashion gods of Italy.
Yeah.
But I think your son maybe accidentally made a great strategy. It's like, oh, we cannot sell it to you, and then
Yeah.
but they want it even
That is
more.
possible.
Yeah.
They
I
want it
think it's a
even
funny
more.
story that
Yeah.
how he immediately he changed. Oh, wait a minute! Now I have to. What would you call it?
Yeah, this is the kind
Yeah,
of story you
exactly.
get to
That's
talk
why I
to all
wanted
your
to
life.
mention quickly.
So when we mention fleets, are you aiming at fleet buyers? So maybe fleet operators, city sharing programs, or are you still going
No,
for
look, we have
private
to do
owner?
both. We need to bring as many cars to the street as possible. That's one thing. We are not the Ferrari. We will never reach that. I mean, it is still a people's car. It's luxury, but it's still a people's car. So what we do is now in Switzerland, we have now one town that have a fleet of 20 cars. It's in Basel. Basel, this is the government. They're having electric bicycle. They have electric cargo bike, and then now they have a fleet of 20 Microlinos. We are doing. The next thing is, maybe you have heard in Switzerland, this is actually in Europe, the biggest fleet operator is Mobility. Mobility is, you have to be a member of this non-profit organization, and you have to pay, let's say, yearly. And they always have these parking spaces next to the train station for the last mile. And we will start next year with them because now they realize that actually the Microlino for a lot of spots, for a lot of trips, it's the right car. And the most expensive part they have is renting these parking spaces and in the hotspots at the train station. So now we are in discussion with, I have to say that the front door is not the easiest car because people have to learn a bit, what it is. Also, we have a soft close. I mean, the door, you only push it slightly to the, and then it closes it by itself, like like a tailgate in some cars. You only go down and it takes it in. So people have to learn this. To get in is also you have to know how to get in, how to get out nicely. So that's why it's not the ideal sharing car, but it's still good for us. Then you have a lot of people that are testing it. And what I mentioned before with the orgasm means they can feel the fun of driving. And the driving is more fun than any other car, except if you're on a racetrack with a race car, because every street becomes a
Yeah.
racetrack with a Microlino.
And you're not going to jail for
No,
speeding,
but you get
but
some
you're still
tickets
having a lot of
sometimes,
fun.
but not going to jail.
You
Tickets
get
we get, yeah.
Yeah,
awesome,
I
awesome.
see how fun can it be. I always love to say it's more fun to drive a slow car very fast than to drive a fast car fast. So I can imagine how it feels speeding in Microlino. I
No,
mean,
it
it's
really, I
just
tell you, you get
really
addicted.
something.
I have really, we have customers, they come back and they have even a collection of cars, including Ferrari. The most car I'm using is the Microlino because it's fun. Every little side street becomes a little racetrack. Also, my wife, she still has a Mini Cooper convertible, an old one that she's not using anymore. I said, why? She said, it's much too big. Once you get used to the size,
Mini is
once you
too
get used
big.
to, but even the Mini
Mini
is too
becomes
big.
so
Can
big.
you imagine with another car? So, but we need a lot more car to be on the street that people start to realize. We know it, It's like we have to, we have tested it. It actually works, but we need some more time. So that's why what we are doing now, also for you, maybe interesting to know, we are now separating our companies with the scooter part. We will keep as a family business, and we have the Microlino part we put into a different holding, including the factory in Italy. And for this, we are looking for investors, and we are now in the discussion with some investors in order to really ramp up to make our vision come true. We need, in all the big cities, we need to have a flagship store in the city and do the test drive in the city and so on. And for this, we need, of course, now we're in discussion with some potential investors. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
good luck with that. We are wishing you all the best, and we are confident you're gonna figure it out. No worries.
definitely.
So it's a bit talking about maybe a bit more of boring stuff. We talk about getting tickets. Now I want to mention safety. Watching a few reviews, no airbags, no rear mirror. How safe is a
Well, I have to
Microlino?
say it like this: it's the safest car driving around for all the people outside. Because I don't want to
Okay.
go into a safety issue when you compare it with a G class, a Mercedes, or one of these other ones. So
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
has to be same clear. And if you look at urban people walking around, people are using more and more bicycle, cargo bikes, electric scooters. So I think you have to also think about these other people. Second thing is you are never driving that fast or aggressive with a car that has a lot of horsepower because you don't have this. You are still enjoying the electric momentum for speeding up. But the Microlino for the safety is the first car that has the unibody construction. And so we did a crash test front and side, and there was no impact on the body. So it was actually more stable than any other car in that category. And for sure, even much better than some of the old Bondo, like these cars, they were really less safe. For the side door, we will do a lot of improvements on the brakes. We most likely also have an airbag in it. But for this one, not because otherwise the price is too expensive. But when we produce in China, we can make it a very, very, very cheap car, or we can make it a cheap car with more safety. And we have decided to go for a cheap car with more safety.
Perfect. Sounds really good, and we are glad you chose that option. So, talking the future, as you mentioned, beyond the current models, you kind of told us what's next. We've seen this Piaggina Beach Edition, the Spider US version, additional battery options, new markets for you. Maybe asking you, where do you see? So, okay, so we are on the verge of entering 2026. Where do you see Microlino in 2030? For
In
4 years
years' time,
time.
I would say we probably produce about 70,000 cars. In 2030, we have one version that has a very small range extender that we are using in countries where the electrification has not been through that well. I'll give you an example. India, they are now looking for small cars, for small electric cars, that maybe it's not easy to charge them all over the place. So at least you have an option to let a small engine running. And I have been in contact with Bajaj. Bajaj is the biggest tuk-tuk producer and also motorbike producer. By the way, now he is the owner of KTM motorbike. And I have met him several times. I visited him, and he actually came up with the idea to think about a range extender in a Microlino just in this case. So then you never run out of electricity, even if you have to run. It's not ideal, but just to be on the safe side. It's like reserve tank that you're carrying with you in case you need it. You're happy. If you don't need it, it's also fine. So we actually think that's a possibility we're actually going to do.
Well, when we kind of drain all our questions, Philip is gonna explain the next round.
Yeah, so for this last part, we have this so-called lightning round. We'll ask you a simple one-liner question. You give us a short answer. It's something
Yeah. Okay.
quick
I
bites.
understand. I know the concept. Yeah.
So the first one would be, what's the one feature that people misunderstand about micro-EVs like Microlino?
It's all the car you need. Sorry,
Yeah,
I have to say, it's all the car you
that's a
need for
very
your daily share.
yeah, and we discussed this. So for people who are wondering why is this answer so short, go back to the start of the interview.
Absolutely, watch the full interview.
The second one, you probably gave us your answer, but what's a city you'd love to launch Microlino in, and why?
I think France, other Paris, is very important because the French have always been very avant-garde when it comes to new mobility. In France, there is also a mayor that is very against SUV and is charging parking spaces more. And now we have the Swiss ambassador that is in Paris. He has a Microlino, a red one, for 4 years. We gave it to him, and I think Paris has really a good potential. The second market for me would be Milano, because the car is coming from Italy. I mean, it was in the area of this Rivolta was in the area of Milano. And then, of course, we are now also with London. London with the city, where the area where you cannot go in with a combustion engine. There we work together with Imperial College to make a study. So London is quite good. And interesting is the British there have a good humor, they really like small cars, and they, in their history, if you go back, MG, Midget, so they really had all these small cars. So they're very very open-minded for this. So that's another city that is very interesting for us to do. Zurich, we already are in Switzerland. Zurich and Geneva, we already here. Then for other countries, for example, Athens is not there yet. Also, we have an air condition that we didn't have before, and in some cities you really need to have air condition, like Athens. And another things, I just came back from Barcelona. I think Barcelona has also a good potential. And you have really wide alleys, wide sidewalks, and you have a lot of motorcycles. But not everybody wants to drive a motorcycle, because this is really, really less than a Microlino. So I see a big potential for, let's say, Barcelona, Madrid. But I think it's important
Other
that
continents?
The city governor realizes that he will increase the life quality by giving possibility with the Microlino for parking and driving. It was a little bit long. Sorry.
No, it's
perfect,
it
perfect,
needs to
perfect.
be. So really no worries. For the next one, with with Microlino, what was the hardest design trade-off you had to accept, or if you maybe
No,
didn't
the hardest
accept?
was really the front door, because you have a lot of weight. You have to put some electronics into the front, and if you don't have a soft close, everybody is slamming the door. This is not very nice for all these parts. That we have the heating in there, we have electronics, etc. So this was the hardest part, and that's why when we do the side door, life becomes more easy. The second part, the hardest, was because the car is really small. Noise issue was very difficult, because you're sitting directly on the engine, on the gearbox, and of course you kind of feel this. And now we have a weight limit for this category, and this is 450 kilo, and you cannot put any heavy material in, otherwise the car is too heavy. So these are the two trade-offs which were quite difficult.
Understandable, yeah. It's definitely understandable about the front door and the soft close. Makes so much sense. Why would it be easier with the side doors? So fingers crossed it really works and it pops off. The last one in this round would be, what's one metric that really doesn't get enough attention in urban mobility?
I think we are at the beginning of talking about micro dust. When you look at the tires of the big cars, it's already a disaster. When you look at the big tires in electric cars, it's even worse because they have such a momentum that when have you ever been in let's say in a Tesla, a dual motor, and you press the pedal to the metal? I mean, you leave a lot of stuff on the road, and this dust is much more poisoning than we are aware of. So we need, in urban environment, we need, of course, much smaller tires. And this is not on the radar. It's not from the combustion. It's coming from the tires.
Awesome. Really interesting. Also, potentially the sound.
Oh yeah,
The
so
sound
sample, yeah,
pollution
of course,
is
sample
huge
for
with
sure, yeah.
tires.
But these people are already aware of. So they're making now some detective for the sound. I'm sure you have heard of it. If somebody is tuning the car and then he gets a picture because of the sound, not because of the speed. No, but the Microlino is it's a different lifestyle. It's a happy car, you know. And we also say more smiles per mile. It makes you feel good. And now the other thing is the color. My wife is driving this pink color, and she drives before she drives other colors. She said it's unbelievable. Just because of the color, she's like a public person. People wave at her. People talk to her just because of the color and the car. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a huge cool factor.
No, I
Cool
think
factor.
maybe the next generation, I
Yeah,
hope the next
definitely attention
generation,
grabber.
which is about your age, really realize that we must change. We must change to smaller cars, really. We have been doing this. I mean, it is ridiculous. I mean, probably you've heard about now we are with the Trump issue in USA. They want to bring now the Cybertruck to Switzerland. It's illegal. It's too big. So we will probably twist the law in order to keep him happy to bring the Cybertruck into Switzerland. It was yesterday big in our newspaper. And now we, of course, our media team, we are going to say, okay, but then I think we should get the permission for the Microlino L7 to drive in the US. We are not, huh? You know it. We are not. We have to take one wheel off to make a three-wheeler. Then the car can go this 90 kilometers, or we have to reduce the speed to 45. So maybe we're trying to make
It's
a
not
golden
acceptable.
steering wheel, for the US market. That was
Oh
political.
yeah, I don't know who wants to. I don't know who. It is political, but I don't want. I don't know who wants a Cybertruck. It's a hideous car, anyways.
This
In my
is great.
opinion.
People start talking about now, and we have. You'll probably also see on our social media where we have a Microlino next to the Cybertruck, and my son
Yeah.
was posting. Guess who is getting CO2 credits? And he gets the most reaction because of this post he ever had, because this shows how ridiculous it is. They get even CO2 credits.
It doesn't make sense.
Anyhow,
This was awesome talk today. Awesome podcast, Wim. Thank you so much. This was Wim Ouboter. Thank you once more. I figure out a sentence to say. It's a definitely tiny in size, but big in idea. Microlino, once again, I wish you all the luck in scaling, and would love to hear back from you in the future. Would love to
please.
test drive it.
Yeah.
To come to Switzerland and to try it out, or in other cities, maybe in the Croatian cities also. And would love to have you for round two, Philip. If you have something to say
Okay,
for the
excellent.
end,
Thank you very much for having me.
feel free.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.